about the way that President Trump has set this tax cut up is in terms of what people know is going to take place. And I think the president repeated it in his session to Congress this week. No taxes on tips, Social Security, or overtime. Now, those tax benefits are very appealing to the lower and middle class, which tends to benefit from those three sources of income. And so President Trump and team cannot be accused of favoring the rich.
In this recent interview on In the Know with Cathie Wood, we learn about Trump's major tax policy changes, Doge's surprising economic impact, and Bitcoin's long-term potential amidst market volatility. Cathie explains how Trump's proposed massive tax cuts could reshape the economy, discusses the surprising role Doge plays in government finance, and provides insight into why Bitcoin remains pivotal despite market uncertainty. Before we begin this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Now let's hear more from Cathie Wood.
I think the other thing we're going to see here is that the threats and actual reality of tariffs, which is causing a lot of consternation. I do not like tariffs. They are tax increases. But I think that the president, and we'll get into this when we go through the charts again, the president is hearkening back to the early days of our country, where tariffs actually supported the government. The primary source of income for the government way back then was tariffs. And then, of course, today, tariffs account for very little funding of government spending, and income taxes account for most of it, business and consumer. So we think that this tariff discussion and the actual imposition of tariffs is a setup for the last leg of this tax cut discussion and hopefully passage through Congress. We believe, and again, this is reading between the lines. Kevin Hassert, who's the president's top economic advisor, seems to be suggesting that the dream of a flatter tax rate structure is what the president is aiming for. He did a lot for corporate taxes in his first administration, taking them from 35%. We were some of the highest corporate tax rates in the world, I think up in the top three, to 21%, and that took us into the bottom quartile. So from a competitiveness point of view, a very good move. I think the shocker to a lot of people is we've entered here in 2025, and the Fed Atlanta's GDP Now indicator suggests that the first quarter will be down in terms of real GDP growth, down 3% at an annual rate from the fourth quarter to the first quarter. And that has unnerved a lot of people because the economy seemed to be doing fine. If you've been watching In the Know for a while, we've been talking about a rolling recession since the Fed started jacking up interest rates in 2022. For 3 years, a little more than 3 years now, we believe we've been in a rolling recession, and we're coming to the end of it.
As we just heard Cathie Wood discuss Trump's ambitious fiscal strategies, now let's hear her elaborate on Doge's unexpected role in government finance and how Bitcoin's price volatility impacts investor decisions. Cathie reveals why the government's reliance on Doge could reshape the economic landscape and offers valuable insights into Bitcoin's potential for growth in these turbulent times. Now let's listen to what Cathie Wood has to say.
So that's the good news. The bad news is we do have to go through this process. Bottom line, however, we think after this initial shudder that the equity markets are going to look through whatever the next 6 month holds in terms of economic activity into a future where we see productivity driving real GDP growth at an accelerated rate in an exciting way, and at the same time, inflation continuing to come down because productivity is going up. Productivity is a powerful antidote to inflation. And we think we're probably on the threshold of some of the most important productivity gains in history. So just wanted to set the stage this way before we go on what is happening in these first 6 months of the year. As you know, there was a lot of hope coming out of the election that we were going to be on our way in terms of the equity markets' health and the broadening out of the equity market as a sign of its health. And it has begun, but as always, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So let's talk about the 1 step back. In terms of fiscal policy, from our point of view, the most important proposal out there right now is the $4.5 trillion tax cut that did make it through the House. They passed a budget with a $4.5 trillion tax cut in it. And that's in addition to the $1.9 trillion tax cut that is part of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, TCJA. That was scheduled to expire at the end of this year. And we don't think it will expire. This $4.5 trillion is on top of that. Now, you must be wondering what the heck is going on here. That just sounds like a bigger deficit, a bigger hole out there. Well, those numbers are over a 10-year period. But I think one of the most important things we're learning is that the tax rate cuts themselves will be retroactive to January 20th. Now, that's not cast in concrete at all, but we have heard in and around the administration talk of retroactive tax cuts. Why is that so important? Well, we learned from the Reagan Revolution that phasing in tax cuts is a recipe for a very deep recession because people and businesses defer economic activity in order to capture the lower tax rates. And so I think this administration has learned from the Reagan administration that phasing in is not a good idea. The other thing in terms of deregulation, the president has said for any regulation anyone wants to put in the federal government, 10 regulations will have to come off the books. In his first term, that was for every 1, 2 had to come off the books. So he's doubling, tripling, quintupling down on that. Doge really is creating the first recession in the government sector since, really in 30 years, since President Clinton and Newt Gingrich worked together to eventually get us into a surplus condition. The government is so much more bloated now than it was back then, that there's a lot more room for maneuver. And so we are going to see a recession in the government sector for the first time in 30 years. And as we know from business cycle analysis, anything that goes for 30 years without a correction or a shakeout gets more and more inefficient over time. And very often there's bad behavior. And of course, this administration is advertising a lot of bad behavior unfortunately, in the government sector in terms of, in the case of Social Security, people receiving checks when they're not alive. So we also can see the recession in the DC metro area. If I'm not mistaken, prices have dropped. I believe this is since the election. Prices in the DC metro area for housing have dropped something in the 20 to 25% range. And
to watch the full interview, check out the link in the description. Cathie Wood breaks down the complex interplay between Trump's bold fiscal policies, the surprising influence of Doge on the government's budget, and the strategic significance of Bitcoin amidst ongoing economic uncertainty. Now, we have two important questions for you. Can Trump's radical fiscal approach genuinely stabilize economic growth? And will Doge's integration into government finance impact cryptocurrency's legitimacy in the mainstream market? Thank you for tuning into Only the Savvy. If you enjoyed this discussion, please subscribe, like, and share our video for more engaging content exploring the innovative world of decentralized technologies. Thanks for watching. Help support this channel and receive exclusive offers from one of our partners located in the description. We'll see you on the next one.